Previously on the marketing mixtape.
When we target based on intent.
If your campaigns are focused on driving conversions, is really the best way to move past the kind of the initial roadblock of having limited contextual targeting.
Interesting nuggets there as to the industries they're in, and that's going to help you to build out this ICP if you haven't done already.
One of the things we learned in that, and I don't think we'd have learned it otherwise, is the power of audiences.
The marketing mixtape, a space where we cut through the noise and focus on what matters in marketing. Grab your coffee and enjoy.
Let's say we're building a campaign for the first time. We have no historical data. We're setting up the first campaign, no conversions yet. We are a SaaS company building customized chatbots, AI chatbots for retail companies who have large e-commerce platforms. They want to set up a customized AI chatbot on their site. And as a SaaS company, that's what we do. That's the service we offer. How would we go about framing a campaign and essentially showing that campaign to the people that we think are more likely to convert?
Well, the first thing I would do is I'd have a look at existing organic traffic that you have going to the website. I'd never start from scratch, because if you're starting from scratch, the only thing you really have is the supposed buyer profile that potentially the customer doesn't even know who that is. That can often happen. We've had customers, groups who've come to work with us before, and in the space of 6 months, they've maybe gone through 3 buyer profiles or 4 buyer profiles. So if they've got if they're starting from scratch, with no organic data, the first thing you're going to have to do is at least level up your ICP, and everyone agree on at least just one ICP. Because the more profiles we have, the more audiences we build, the more difficult it's going to for us to find conversions. So let's just say that this ABC chatbot industry has existing organic data. Let's say they have a blog. Let's say they have service pages. Let's say they have use case pages. And the first thing I'd start to do is I'd start to inspect using, obviously, inserting my retargeting pixel onto the website. I'd start to create kind of custom segments inside the audience manager to look at who is going to the website currently. What can we find out about those visitors, right? So basically, what we're finding out is who's going to the website currently, and how can we use that as to inform and build an audience. Now, it would probably take me between 30 and 60 days to collect the data, and then I would build an audience based on previous retargeting data. So I'm looking at existing organic traffic going to the website. Not all the organic traffic to all the pages are going to perform the same, right? You could have a really low intent, really successful SEO blog post, and that can completely screw up your audience because it was just targeting it could be a typical how-to article for these retail customers, but it doesn't target any of the retail customers. They target someone else, but it gets really successful on Google. It gets a ton of clicks, but it actually doesn't really help you build an audience. So you need to make sure that when you're inserting your retargeting pixel and building out your audiences in your custom audiences, you need to make sure that you're telling Google what pages you want to run the pixel on specifically. Those pages can inform that they are that's somebody who would read that would obviously be a potential audience. Then from that, I would start to build an audience based on the buyer profile in the retail business. I would probably ask the customer for 10 examples of LinkedIn profiles. I would look at the average age. I would look at probably education. I would look at interest. So where would they be going to for their source of knowledge, of their source of truth? And I would use existing targeting data. So I'm using first-party data, which is your retargeting, and I'm going and asking the customer for a very, very specific ICP. And then ultimately age plus education plus interest plus existing data. That will give us a pretty solid audience. Now, when things can get really out of hand is if you insert into that mix data that is a false positive. For example, if you have a lot of traffic going to the website, it's highly unqualified, really low intent, and really bad, just a really bad audience, it's going to completely dilute all of your previous targeting. So you need to make sure that when you're building out these audiences, you're very, very careful that what you put in those custom audiences is as close or as correct as possible.
And I guess that highlights the importance of differentiating reach or awareness with intent as well. I mean, you mentioned like, you know, a super well performing blog post, it may resonate and maybe something that a lot of people find interesting. That does not mean that they have a high level intent for the product or service that they're offering. I think that's a great differentiation. What about creating something like a display campaign or a CPM campaign, where we're essentially pushing messages at scale and seeing which of these messages may resonate, and again using that feedback, that data, to then build our campaigns for search or, you know, or consideration campaigns.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting strategy, which around 3 years ago I used that like to run some kind of government political campaigns. And really simple, basically what we did is we created a display banner, and we had 2 pages. So we had the first page, which they literally opt in and they say they're over 18 years old and they'd like to find out more information, and then we forward them to another page. And what we did is we put a retargeting pixel on the other page, on the second page, and we built an audience from that. So we knew that anyone that clicked through had potential intent. So the display campaign obviously costs a fraction of running a YouTube in-stream, right? Or a Google search ad, right? Because the CPM is obviously a lot lower. So what you can do is you can do 2 things actually. You can look at average click-through rate. An average click-through rate can determine things like copy and messaging and value proposition, narrative, colors, graphics, and, you know, the design, right? Just kind of the visual impact of the ad. But the second thing you can do, which is way more powerful, is if on the page you gauge 2 things. One is click-through rate, so click through to the second step in the landing page or the funnel, or time on site. And you can install a software on your landing page that can indicate the average time on site and give you the IP addresses or the user IDs of people that spent less than 3 seconds. And immediately you can use that as, you know, as a negative, like as a blacklist to your campaigns. And then everything else moves into your ideal audience. So on that, I'm not a big fan, because the reason I'm not a big fan, very simply, is display has over the last couple of years has become very saturated. There are a lot of noise. It's very difficult to find campaigns and businesses that have such unique product or offering that are at a level that display can work. I was talking the other day to somebody who has this apparel brand, and they basically sell clothes and apparel, sporting gear basically, for oversized, right? And their branding was so cool, and it was like Lululemon on steroids, right? It was like the next level. These guys are really big. They're doing actually very, very well in Canada and the US. And I mean, I don't know if they're the next Gymshark or the next Lululemon, but they're pretty solid. I mean, they're doing deals with Under Armour and things. Anyway, and what they do is they have a picture of this very oversized person on their display ad. And it's just immediately something you'd never see. It's like, whoa, that's cliche, you know, that's stigmatized. Like, you can't put that on the internet. Well, yes, you can. That's branding. That's the power of branding. I mean, you're talking to somebody who is oversized and still on sporting gear that makes them increase their self-esteem and get them to the gym, you know, make them feel better again, right? So it really does depend. Display works, but you need to be in the right part of your journey, and you need to have a very, very clear value proposition, very distinguished offering to kind of make it understand, I guess, what makes you different. First and foremost, what is your core message, and how do you get that across in less than 3 seconds in a 200 by 200 pixel format, and secondly, understanding your audience. So a message that will impact, but that will not alienate. Because right. An image like the one that you're saying, if they didn't know who their core target audience was, that could very much have the opposite effect. I feel like there's still so much to talk about on as far as advanced targeting techniques, but this kind of brings us to the end of the segment. We should definitely do a part 2 of this. There's a ton to talk about. Custom affinity audiences, lookalike audiences,
how granular we can get with geotargeting. We just don't have time right now, so we definitely look forward to talking about all of this in our next episode.
Yeah, sure. And just two takeaways for all of the PPC nerds out there, which I think everyone should kind of consider if you're getting started in PPC or you're currently running PPC. First thing is obviously go subscribe to yugomedia.com/blog. Subscribe to our marketing mixtape. It's really good, guys. And the second thing, which is a little bit more technical, is make sure to collect as much data as you can. Businesses with no data in the future will be less and less valuable. I think there's not enough talk about this, but the more first-party data you have, that means people who are accepting your cookies and entering your web property, you have the right to retarget them. And I've seen businesses go from negative ROAS to positive ROAS just with very, very smart retargeting thanks to their first-party data. So don't underestimate the power of retargeting, and do not underestimate the power of your own data. So if you are a business out there, as an enterprise, a B2B, a B2C, a B2B, D2C, D2D, whatever you want to call yourself, look after your data, guys. Make sure you have retargeting installed on your website, be it Meta, Facebook, be it LinkedIn, be it Google, YouTube. Make sure that you're collecting data, because one day you need to run a campaign, or you're currently running campaigns. That data can save the day.
Awesome. So if you haven't already, go install your tracking pixels. And the keys to successful campaigns is anything apart from set and forget. We need to understand what our campaigns are doing, what's happening, and how we can consistently and constantly improve and optimize. That's us for today. Over and out.
Till next time.